Start in a standing position at the top of your mat. Maybe slide your hands down the right thigh for a little side stretch, and then down the left. This is going to be a lot of standing and twisting and balance moves today. Some one-legged things to work on, proprioception and balance. Maybe an arms overhead stretch. For all of us that have been sitting at desks for a while, this feels pretty good. Maybe raise one arm higher than the other. Reach out long and tall. Go ahead, forward fold. Bend the right knee slightly and lift open to the left for a standing open twist. Left arm overhead. This feels pretty good on the lower back and the hamstrings. If you need to use a yoga block at any time, if you don't quite have the flexibility, you may do so. Remember to take some breaths. This is about getting kind of blood flow going and stretching and lengthening everything out. Go ahead and drop the arm, rise hands up overhead. And swan dive down to forward fold. Going to open up to the other side. Bend the left knee, open up the right arm overhead for a nice spinal twist, a nice hamstring stretch. Go ahead and drop the hand down. Maybe bend the left knee and then the right knee. A little lower back stretch here. Maybe hug your elbows. Do some slight side to side sways in your forward fold. Halfway lift. And lower. Reverse swan dive up, arms overhead. Reaching tall. And swan dive down. Come up to standing. We're going to do some more side stretches. Have that right arm slide down as far as you can, trying to stay as paper thin as you can. Left arm overhead. This is a great side stretch. Again, if you have to put your hand on your hips and if you don't have that kind of flexibility and mobility, go ahead and do so. And leaning over to the left side, left arm sliding down the leg, right arm overhead. Again, trying to keep everything in line as if you're in between two pieces of paper. Come back to center. Arms up overhead, reaching tall. And swan dive down. Go ahead and plant the palms and hopper step backwards to high plank. Drop down into up dog, chest up, head up. And push the hips back into down dog. You might need to pedal your feet a little bit, walk that dog as you head into the first down dog. Deeply bend the knees and hopper step forward. Halfway lift. Forward fold. Reverse swan dive up, arms overhead. And swan dive down. Plant the hands and hopper step back into high plank. Lower the hips, chest and head up for up dog. And then push back into down dog. These flows really get the blood moving and kind of get you in a rhythm, which sometimes we can forget to do in our training. And deeply bend the knees, hopper step forward to forward fold, halfway lift. Roll up to standing. We're going to do one-legged tree pose. Pull your right foot up and rest it on your inner left thigh, arms up overhead. You don't want to rest your foot on your knee. That's not good to push on your knee. So if you need to push it into your calf or simply bend it slightly, the idea here is strength and balance. Find one focal point. That's the easiest way to stay in a balanced position. Don't move your gaze. Find one thing to look at, and you'll find balance just comes naturally. One leg for me is more balanced than the other, so I tend to have a harder time on my right leg. But go ahead and drop down, release the leg, and you're going to lift your left leg up, pushing your foot into your right thigh. Sometimes I need to paddle out my toes too after standing for a while. And again, don't push that foot against your knee. But arms up overhead, find something to look at. Try not to get distracted by anything. I tend to like to do yoga in the elements, listening to birds and my dogs running around and barking. But for any balancing poses, you'll want to find one spot to look at and keep your gaze there. Balance is something triathletes and runners and cyclists don't often work on, and it's something that's really crucial and critical, and I've found with this kind of newfound yoga practice, it's really helped me. Go ahead and drop down. Paddle out those toes. Forward fold. Plant the palms, bend the right knee. We're going to open up again to the left side, left arm overhead. I have a lot of tightness in my lower back and hamstrings, and so working on strength in the right way and spending time stretching and moving in a way that kind of releases tension that I might be building feels really good. Again, if you need to put your right hand on a block, if you don't have that flexibility, that's okay. Go ahead, we're going to open up to the right, bending the left knee, opening the right arm up overhead when you're ready. And back to forward fold. Slowly rise up one vertebra at a time to standing. Arms up overhead for a chair pose. I'm going to show you how not to arch your back. So you're going to want to tuck your pelvis under, deeply bend as far as you can, arms outstretched. Again, don't arch your back. Keep it as straight as possible. And when you can, bend to your left, pushing your arms against each other, pushing your arms against your thigh, opening up as much as you can. And then back to chair pose. Again, tuck the pelvis, keep the back straight. You can do it. You can hold this pose. Go ahead and twist to the right. Pushing your hands against each other, pushing your arms against your thigh, finding that chest opening. And drop down to forward fold. Roll up, arms up overhead. And forward fold. Plant the palms and hopper step back. down into up dog, chest proud, neck proud, pushing back into down dog. And deeply bend the knees and hopper step forward between your hands. Halfway lift and lower. Reverse swan dive up, arms overhead. Taking in air, taking in oxygen, and swan dive down. Plant the palms, hopper step back. Half lower into up dog, head and neck proud. Pushing back into down dog. Remember, in down dog, push those hands and forearms down to the mat. Kick that right leg behind you into one-legged dog, and then draw that right leg to the outside of your right hand for a low lunge. Drop the left knee, uncurl the toes, and open up to the right. This is a nice low lunge opener. Maybe even raise your arm overhead. Your right arm overhead. A nice little psoas stretch here. And drop your hands. Curl your toes and pop back into one-legged down dog. And drop your right leg. Be ready to kick your left leg back behind you. And then rush it forward to the outside of your left hand. Drop your right knee, uncurl your toes. Open up to the left. You can leave your left hand on your leg, or you can open up overhead. And drop your hands down and kick your leg back into one-legged dog. And drop your leg into down dog. Hopper step forward, forward fold and halfway lift. Forward fold, reverse swan dive up, arms overhead. And swan dive down. Hopper step back into high plank. Hips down into up dog. Pushing back then into down dog. Left leg kicked out behind you. Stack your hips. And if you can, flip your dog. Reaching your left arm towards the front of your mat. A really nice opener. And then slowly bring your dog back and drop down into down dog. Kick your right leg behind you, bend your knee, and stack your hips. And if you can, slowly and carefully flip your dog, reaching your right arm forward towards your mat, the top of your mat. And then carefully come back into down dog. Hop or step forward into forward fold, halfway lift. Forward fold, reverse swan dive up. Maybe a little arch in your back if you can. And swan dive back down. Hopper step back into high plank, down into up dog. Head and chest proud and open, and push back into down dog. Caterpillar forward to high plank. Give your little pooch a kiss if he's there. Drop your knees into a little tabletop. And let's do some cat-cows here. Arching that back and then filling up your abdomen with oxygen and air. Coming back to a neutral tabletop. Kick the right leg out behind you for a push-up. And down and back up. And one more down and back up. Drop the And then kick the right leg back behind you, left arm out, and tuck in, elbow to knee. This is a great balancing move. Opposite leg, opposite arm, stretched out long. And tuck back in and go to neutral tabletop. Kick the left leg out behind you for a push-up and back. Bend the elbows, keeping your elbows towards your torso, and one more. And then drop the left leg. For left leg being kicked back out and right arm extended in front of you. And curl in, elbow to knee, and curl out, and curl in, and stretch out. This is a great balancer. And in, and one more time out, and in, and drop down to tabletop. Curl the toes and push back into down dog. Hopper step forward, forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold, reverse swan dive up overhead, and swan dive down. Plant the palms and hopper step back, half lift into up dog, pushing back into down dog. Hopper step forward between your hands, halfway lift, forward fold into reverse swan dive, and swan dive down. Paddle out those knees in that forward fold. Slowly roll up to standing one vertebra at a time. Arms up overhead. Bend the right knee, use it as a kickstand. We're going to step back into a reverse lunge, coming up to right-legged high knee. This is a great balance and mobility move. Step back with that right leg into reverse lunge. Step forward, right knee up. Step back into reverse lunge. Forward, right knee up. Drop down into forward fold. Reverse swan dive up, arms overhead. Kick that left foot back into a little kickstand and step back into reverse lunge. Left leg up, knee up. Kick back into reverse lunge. Draw the left knee up. Kick back into reverse lunge, left knee up. And hold. Forward fold. And roll up to standing. One more side stretch, reaching that right arm down. See if you can reach past your knee. Left arm overhead, open up the chest if you can, looking up towards the sky or the ceiling. Drop down, leaning to the left side, right arm overhead, left arm cascading down at your thigh, opening up your right arm, opening up your chest for a nice side stretch with a chest opener. And coming back to center, arms up overhead, taking a big breath, swan dive down to forward fold. Step down into tabletop, push back onto your heels and in a seated position, put your arms behind you. We're going to do a little ankle stretch if you can. Lean back. Come up to seated. Put your hands behind your back one more time, fingers facing your feet, and roll up with those ankles. And come back to seated. And then a final child's pose. Spread the knees out, toes touching, arms down. Taking breaths here. There's a lot of up, down, and rushing air and oxygen and blood through your system, cleansing breaths from head to toe. For me, taking 20 minutes for yoga is really, I feel like, centered me a little bit and given some balance that I've very much needed. Come back to seated, arms overhead, hands to heart. Namaste.